Warning, warning, warning. Guess what's happening in Phoenix, Arizona today? You're right. It's hot. Guess what? It's always hot in Phoenix, Arizona in July. And that's just a start to the story for today. An interesting idea to challenge you and perhaps some of your thinking. I think you'll find it interesting on this Friday as we kind of take a time to cool down and flow into the weekend. Just some interesting ideas and then a wonderful song to send you on your way. I'm Stan Houston. The program begins right now. And thank you for taking time. By the way, a number of you responded to my program yesterday in which I simply said, and I hopefully demonstrated to many of you, that this is not a climate emergency, and it's certainly not even a climate crisis. But of course, people are saying, "Oh, Stan, it's so hot. Don't you know this is the hottest time ever?" Well, unfortunately for you and your truth, that's not true. And most smart people know that. But that may be a small minority these days. Now, of course, I lived in Arizona for 15 years and enjoyed it and loved it. We are now in North Carolina, where it gets kind of humid in July. But definitely, let me tell you, in Arizona, particularly in the Sonoran Desert, because if you go up into the mountains, it can be quite cool and very nice. In July, it's hot. In fact, Phoenix may top out at 112, 113 degrees today. But you know what? That's a little cooler than 119 or 120 or 121, and it reaches that. Well, what do people do? Well, they do what they have done forever if they live in the Phoenix area. They cool down, they calm down, they take it easy, they try to look out for others, and even though humidity and heat and cold temperatures can take people's lives, they always do, they will do the best, and they'll be just fine for the most part. Now, the reason I wanted to mention this is because I actually did a number of years ago when I was teaching history a little bit of a study on this, because I remember reading in my history about, the Okies and John Steinbeck's book, The Grapes of Wrath, and about these people in the midst of the Depression in 1936 making their way. And many of you, if you've got a little literary knowledge, or if you're perhaps like me, you've got a little bit of history in you, you know that 1936 was one of the worst summers and winters ever. Now, I thought this was going to be fully lost, and then to my great surprise, just the other day, and I think it was probably yesterday, in effect, the U.S. is sweltering. However, the heat wave of 1936 was far deadlier. The killer U.S. heat wave of 1936 spread as far north as Canada, led to the heat-related deaths of an estimated 5,000 people, sent thermometers to a record 121 degrees Fahrenheit in Steele, North Dakota, and made July the warmest month ever recorded. Now, that is just a small part of how a gentleman named George Bass begins that article. The U.S. is sweltering, but the heat wave of 1936 was far deadlier. And I'm going to give him credit for that. It's a wonderful article, so please take time this weekend to look it up. And it is in the Washington Post, which kind of surprised me. But you will find a very interesting story about what that incredible year, because the winter was terribly cold and the summer was terribly hot. And even to this day, many of the record temperatures, if you talk about breaking the records, some of the temperatures from 1936 on many days still stand as the hottest days. And of course, that's over 86 years ago, when there were far less people and far less cars and practically no SUVs. So, what are you going to do with that? I also do remember, and some of you will remember, that because I was very much a part of it, 1988, that was a terrible summer. Karen and I had just returned from our overseas mission work around the world, and in 1987 we had returned and we had rented a small apartment. By the summer of 1988, we were able to buy a small house in Minneapolis, and we moved one day, and I remember sitting on the back of the U-Haul truck, and it was 104 degrees. And it was a miserably hot summer. The weather comes, the weather goes. The weather does what it does, and who knows where it will be and where it will go. So simply to say this is the hottest time ever just isn't true. Now, we may be more aware of it. There may be more publicity about it. There are certainly more people who talk about it and complain about it, but it doesn't mean that it is true. So I just wanted to pass that on as kind of a follow-up to the story and encourage you on this weekend to read that article. Very well done. And I'm in the business, no matter what, of commending people who write well, think well, speak well, and do good things. And that is a fascinating story. And there are still people who will remember, and he mentions them in the article, who actually still remember. Oh my goodness, they remember the summer of 36. Well, just let all of that sit on your head for a while. I'm Stan Houston. Some interesting ideas and perhaps news you can use, and certainly it'll give you something to talk about and think about. We'll be back. And I'm done for the day. However, I'd like to just simply go out with a song that's very meaningful for me in the midst of life today. And perhaps you have heard it before. It's rather old-fashioned. It was somewhat revived by the wonderful revision, I think it was probably the second or third version of the movie True Grit. So, have a good weekend, and take 5 minutes now just to listen and think about the song before you, and we'll probably talk a little bit about it later this weekend. Best and blessings. Stay cool as you can. If somebody does something nice for you, like deliver something to you in this heat, give them a little extra money, and simply enjoy the time of being calm and perhaps being in a place where it's cool, and give thanks that you are just that, in a place that is cool. Thanks to electricity. All the best. Bye for now. And thanks to Iris Dement for stirring my mind, moving my spirit, and touching my heart.